Hi, my dear Astro family. Today we are going to be talking about the upcoming lunar eclipse. Now, this lunar eclipse is going to be taken on the 5th of May 2023. Depending on where you are, you're going to have to check the time zone for yourself, but it is happening on 14 degree 58 minutes of the sign of Scorpio. So in this video, we will be looking at what lunar eclipses are. We are going to be looking at the aspects of the lunar eclipse, which is partially a Uranian Mercurian. I'm going to be introducing you a new asteroid, which we have never spoken about, and that's going to be Diana. Its astrological number is 78, so 78. So it's worth staying till the very end. And then at the end of the video, I will be looking at how it might be affecting the 12 signs very briefly. Now, before we dive into this lunar eclipse, I would like you to check out my upcoming retreat. You only have got a month left to sign up, a few days left before it goes discounted. So you might want to be grabbing your seat because this is going to be the year of relationship. So I wanted to share loads of information about relationship related topics for you so that you can overcome some of these challenges. And on the very last day, we will be doing some cleansing around relationship topics as well so that we can set ourselves free from the troublesome period in that department. And also, because of popular request, I've decided to put together a course about the 30 most important asteroids that will start in May. So you still have got time to sign up, but check it out. It will be a 10-week course. It will be extremely detailed. Probably you will not find such detailed course online about asteroids. Let's get started with this lunar eclipse. First of all, lunar eclipses are very significant events in astrology. If you think about what the moon is, basically it's talking about our emotional or spiritual self. So a lunar eclipse tends to occur when the Earth passes between the sun and the moon. Basically, the moon is in the Earth shadow. Now, often the moon is actually appearing reddish, and therefore we tend to call this as the blood moon. Now, if we think about what moon is very much about internal life. So it is tend to be affecting us more on the personal level rather than the solar eclipses. However, the solar eclipses can, trigger us also, but the lunar eclipse is a little bit more on the personal side because the moon is connected to your key to happiness, your emotional responses to certain situations, but also it shows your intuitive self as well as something to do with your unconscious mind. Now, typically, whenever there is a lunar eclipse, these are very intensified periods, especially when it happens in the sign of Scorpio. So it will be talking to us about a powerful time when we need to do some type of introspection, self-reflection about our own life. Typically, the emotions are very heightened during lunar eclipses, and because it's going to be taking place in the sign of Scorpio, it is definitely very intensified. Now, there are three types of lunar eclipses. We've got the total, the partial, or the penumbral eclipses. This lunar eclipse is going to be the third one, a penumbral one. And it occurs when the moon passes through the outer portion of the Earth's shadow, which we call as penumbra. Now, when there are eclipses, typically they reveal some type of hidden information in the shadows. So that's why it is something to do with introspection, but they can be a turning point in our life as well, an emotional behavior change or how we respond to others, but also it can speed things up as well, or it can bring us sudden opportunities, or it can take opportunities away from us. This eclipse is going to be colored with loads of Uranian flavor. So it can indicate that we need to be expecting the unexpected. Or these things, what are coming into the picture, are very shocking for the self and for the people as well. Now, this lunar eclipse is going to be taking place on 14th degree of Scorpio. So it is falling into Piscean Decan, and within Piscean Decan, it's going to be Aries dwad. So definitely it is bringing up so much emotional tension. It's kind of like a double Marsian ruled lunar eclipse. And Mars is the planet of frustration, anger, rage. But in Scorpio, it tends to be bottling up. It tends to be kind of like eating, this tension is tends to be eating us inside out. Now, it is opposing the shocking planet called Uranus, which definitely can cause some turmoil, emotional turmoil in our life, but it can bring surprises as well. And then we're going to be just scratching our head. What is going on? What is happening right now? Scorpio is the sign of power. So often there are some powerful or power struggles going on in the world. Often, actually, Scorpio represents the politicians. So, in the political world, but Uranus is the planet of scandals. So, it could be some scandalous truth which is coming on to surface, and people are going to be talking about it because this lunar eclipse not only conjuncting Uranus, but it is in conjunction with Mercury as well, which is already retrograde. So this is something we might have known about already, or we had a suspicion about, Scorpio, but we were unsure about it. And now the truth gets revealed. Because a lunar eclipse is a full moon, right? A full moon is a culmination of an event, something which might have started approximately about 6 months ago. And then that's going to be more exposed now because it happens in the sign of Scorpio, which is a representation of all sorts of secrets. So secrets can be exposed on a global as well as on a personal level as well. Uranus is the planet of spiritual downloads. So it's about knowing something intuitively with Moon and Uranus, but it's an opposition, right? So at the end of the day, it really tells you that you're going to have to embrace both sides of the scale. You're going to have to embrace the Scorpio as well as the Taurus within us. We're going to differentiate them a little bit in a short while. But having spiritual downloads, but the Mercury there is telling you to revisit the facts and the data to make sure that your spiritual downloads are actually correct. Also, this could be investment related opportunities as well. Definitely, it's going to be bringing chaos in the investment fields, banking, and so forth. It could be a sudden like suddenly a coin is going to disappear, which cannot really happen suddenly, right? But maybe it's a sudden shocking news about it with that Mercury. Now, what is Scorpio and Taurus about? Because obviously the sun and the moon are opposing. So often it indicates that our emotional needs and the goals are not aligned. And we're going to have to find ways to bring them together. So Taurus is about what's mine, and Scorpio is about sharing what's yours. So it's the give and take axis. You know, so often it can indicate that I try to give something, but there is a realization that, you know what, I've given enough and I don't receive anything back in return. Taurus is about forms, kind of like a little bit of a crystallization, and Scorpio wants to transform those forms. That form does not fit our life anymore, so we need to let go of those. So Scorpio is trying to destruct the forms and the structures in our life. Taurus is about happiness. And it says that happiness is simple. We just need to enjoy life to the fullest. We need to do things which we enjoy, and we need beautiful things around us. But then Scorpio is really much talking about complexity. So the fact that we've got a lunar eclipse here, it is telling you to let go of your complex emotions. Try to simplify things a little bit more, or because it's going to make your life easier. Taurus is about building something. Often it's about building your confidence level. So something that you have been building for a while actually needs to let go because it might not be serving you anymore. From a psychological perspective, it might be the self-destructive behavior. It might be the food we put into our body. But on a physical level, you know what? It would really talk about that you've been doing investments for a while and you're going to have to take a breather here. And you're going to have to look at new opportunities as well. Also, from a feeling point of view, you might have been sitting on your feelings for a while and you are asked to express them now because it's going to ease up your soul. Taurus is the earth. So it's our physical experiences of our body. But Scorpio is metaphysical experiences. So we are asked at the same time to have a deep dive into our emotional well-being, being psychological a little bit, trying to find our psychological blockages, our fears, and to face them once and for all. Of course, Taurus is about our values and money. With Taurus, we want to find stability in our life. We want to be able to count on someone or a situation. Therefore, it tends to become stubborn about things. Also, it is asking you the question what you invest into, not just in the material world, but in yourself as well. Do you focus on your talents? What do you try to accumulate? What is meaningful to you? But then Scorpio is trying to energetically stabilize something in your life, having a strong psychological foundation and strength. You are required here to be preparing yourself for a powerful shift. But that powerful shift is only going to be working extremely well if you have got a solid foundation to it. And in order for you to start a healing journey, firstly, you're going to have to figure out what the heck is wrong with me. And believe me, nothing is wrong with you. It's just somewhere in your psyche. So something which needs to be said out loud with that Mercury-Uranus combination, and it's kind of like verbalizing your feeling. Otherwise, it can bring very intense experiences in our life. Something that you are not able to see within yourself, which is there deep down, but others might be able to. So the Scorpio Taurus axis is about giving and receiving. Both signs are extremely controlling, by the way. One is controlling the emotions, that's Scorpio. Taurus is controlling their material possessions. They holding on to things. So what are you holding on to that is not necessarily good anymore and needs to let go? Also, Scorpio is trying to control relationships too. So is my relationship not working? Am I not able to trust others? Am I not able to trust myself as well? Scorpio is also about obsessions. So I've also spoken about the Mercury retrograde period a couple of days ago. And then I did mention there that the cost of living will be having some type of issues here. So we can become very obsessed over the cost of things. And then Uranus goes on the streets, causes riots, demonstrations and all those type of things because it's extremely frustrated where the world is actually taking us. Scorpio is about the intangible assets of our life. So basically, on one hand, the emotional power, but Taurus is about the tangible assets of our life. So how to bring these two into balance? So in the sign of Taurus, we are trying to establish an earthly form of of a good life, basically, right? Whether it is the security of our job, whether it is the ability to build more of a prosperous life. And I think that's going to be a major topic anyway, once Jupiter will be shifting into the sign of Taurus. Scorpio also wants to merge, but it wants to merge on a psychological, on a not creative, on a psychological and on an emotional level, because it's about sharing, right? So I want to be able to share the burden and the goodies as well with someone else. We're gonna have to carry the load together. Taurus is about shapes and forms of things. And Scorpio wants to kind of break down those shapes and forms, and it kind of wants to create new ones. So it could also talk about looking into new ways of resources as well. Taurus is about natural things. Scorpio is about the supernatural, the not necessarily unnatural, it's the supernatural. Natural. So what it really much talking about is that we all have got some hidden buried talents which we can dig up, and then we can utilize that to our best abilities. But also it talks about ancestral talent as well. Scorpio is the sign of shared karma, something which I inherited by getting married, for example, from others. So when you have got a very strong lunar eclipse happening in the sign of Scorpio, we're gonna have to uh, go beyond basically our imagination. And we're going to have to draw a certain amount of power, maybe from our ancestry lines or from other people. That's why we sometimes call Scorpio as the energy vampire as well, right? Because it sucks the light out of people. But then Taurus says that we just need to do that slowly or naturally, or not to become overbearing. So personal wealth versus other people's wealth. Often what happens here is that I'm getting frustrated that others are paying the same amount of tax like I do, but my wages are completely different, a lot lower. And then with the Uranus, we get angry and frustrated about it. What's common between these two signs, of course, are that they are both fixed. So the fixed signs are always working to stabilize things in our life. So you are invited to find ways to stabilize something. Also, both signs are extremely patient. They both have got their desires, and often they keep things to their chests, right? Because they don't want to be kind of robbed or something to be stolen away from them. Okay. Unless Scorpio trusts someone, then they share those information with others. Now, so this Uranus Mercury for me could really talk about a leaked out information which people are not meant to know, but it's going to come out as a form of gossip, for example, or in the newspaper or social media. It could be actually video related, which is going to leave some uncertainty around us. Obviously, because Scorpio is about stabilizing something, which is other people. So they are going to be kind of trying to cover up this situation. But I feel like people will not believe in that. Taurus is very much about growth as well, because it is ruled by Venus, which is one of the planets that is in connection to fertility. But Scorpio is the death. So basically, we can call a period of time when it's pretty much about life and death situations here. Of course, Taurus is ruled by Venus and Scorpio is ruled by Mars. That would be the traditional ruler, and the modern ruler would be Pluto. Now, these are natural enemies, so they have got some type of issues with each other. But it's kind of like trying to bring the yin and the yang energies together so that we can have a healthier, steadier life overall. Now, I also would like to mention a couple of historical matters for you, as well as give you a couple of dates, what you might need to be revisiting a little bit, what was going on in your life. Because we did have a solar eclipse in 2022 on the 30th of April, and that happened on 10 degree. So now that was pretty close to this lunar eclipse, sorry. Now, this eclipse actually was highlighting a Uranus retrograde journey. So therefore, and then we do know that in 2022, the major aspect of the year was a Saturn-Uranus square. And we had loads of political upheavals. We had issues around restrictions. We had the COVID. We had breaking away from the old, trying to go towards something more futuristic. We had issues with cost of living and all those type of things. Now, this lunar eclipse is actually highlighting that. But what I find very interesting, that Uranus is back to 18 degree. That's where the Mars North Node Uranus conjunction took place at the end of July 2022. Now, during this lunar eclipse period, Uranus is back to 18 degree as well. So it's worth having a look at what was going on around that period of time. Well, what was going on at the end of July, beginning of August? Basically, at the very beginning of August, cells of recently dead pigs brought back to life by some researchers at Yale University, which is definitely talking about the organ transplants and something to do with stroke, which it can bring up for us, but also the ethical questions around the definition of death. Interesting. I've been saying that I think there is going to be further research around how to cheat death. And this is something that Uranus retrograde highlighted. Now, Uranus is also part of this lunar eclipse. So this topic is going to pop up for us. But also early August, on the 5th of August, Volkswagen launched a prototype of its first flying car, an automated electric passenger vehicle named the Flying Tiger. I mean, Uranus is technology, Mercury is travel and cars. So this seems to be coming back as a topic for us. On the 7th of August, we had the US Senate passes Sweeping Inflation Reduction Act, an economic package designed to combat climate change, address healthcare costs, and tax large corporations. Now, this also might become a topic during the next 3 to 6 month period of time. So basically somewhere between May till October. Also, we had some unsealed court papers of FBI search of Trump residence, and they discovered 11 sets of classified documents, which some of them were labeled as top secrets. Now, I would like to mention that I have prepared this little presentation just before Trump got, when this Trump situation came out. And I wanted to post this video last weekend, but then the Trump situation happened. And I was very certain that somehow Trump is going to come on media. I mean, I did not expect him handing himself over, but Trump during the next 3 to 6 months is going to be very significant. And FBI is also a Scorpio-related matters, so I feel like some further documents will be released. Also, in August, UK had a very high inflation rate, which rised to a new 40-year high of 10.1%, with the food costs the largest contributor of it. So the food cost and inflation is going to be a major matter in the next 6 months. And also, I don't know where this situation is, but California voted to ban the sale of all new gasoline-powered cars until 2035. And also, Biden announced a plan to cancel students' loan debts by $10,000 or $20,000, depending on the amount of that. So these type of things can come up during this uh, retrograde period. But on a personal level, this could also talk to you about some type of grief and losses, crying over the spilled milk, but also some type of grief which might be coming into your life, unfortunately, through losses. It might have started last year. Remember, we have got the eclipses coming in pairs. So we've got the solar eclipse, which happened in the sign of Aries. And this Aries solar eclipse was about new beginnings, but also it was about the closure as well, because it happened on 29 degree. But then we have got this Scorpio lunar eclipse. And the eclipses are about letting go of something in our life. And this is Scorpio as well, which is talking to you about the closure. So we are invited to make significant changes in our life, or we are forced to make these changes. And often we are scared of eclipses because it always looks like the mood is eaten away, or or it looks red and blood color, and what is going on, you know. So, but these are fated events, something which is meant to be happening in our life, and in the long run, it might be bringing you something better. Loads of people will have to create their own exit plans. Now, I also would like to mention that not everyone's life is going to turn upside down, but especially if it happens around your rising sign, sun, moon, or around the ruler of your rising sign. So, therefore, Mars or Venus, basically, then it's going to be affecting you significantly. You might be actually grieving about something that you lost recently, or it was taken away from you. So one of the major questions is that what are you trying to cling on to? A full moon is always a culmination of a situation. And with that Uranus, something that wants to wake us up. We need to move away from something as quick as possible. Also, during lunar eclipses, there are heightened possibilities of earthquakes. So that's a possibility that it will bring earthquakes somewhere as well. But often, because these are fixed signs, we tend to ask ourselves the question, why always happens to me? It happens to you because you are meant to be embracing the power within you, and that wants to be awakening you, and that wants you to move away from something so that you can have a better opportunity to come around. Eclipses are also connected to losses as well. Often we just feel we do not have the energy, and we want to be running away, and we want to be hiding and so forth. But this eclipse is inviting you to be more powerful than ever. Eclipses or the full moons are illuminating something. What is toxic in my life? Are you just getting used to a situation, or do you have the courage to make a powerful shift in your life? You are called upon to embrace your individuality and your freedom. Uranus is the planet of breakdown, breakthroughs, breakups. So you are meant to be breaking away from something. You are meant to be thinking outside of the box as well. Often we need to release a toxic relationships, for example. We just need to be letting go of a situation. Often we don't know how to do that, right? But that Uranus Mercury might be giving us some great ideas. And I would like to mention also that Scorpio can be connected to the power of attraction. So what we think is what we will be attracting. Another interesting thing which I would like to mention, because Jupiter has stationed direct on this degree in 2018, 10th of July, exactly on this degree. Now, I also found it very interesting. So I straight away looked up what was going on around that time. because Jupiter will be moving into the sign of Taurus as well. And on July 13th, we had a large protest in London against US President Donald Trump, featuring Trump-like baby blimp as President Trump meets Queen Elizabeth II and Windsor Castle. So unfortunately, this could bring some type of protest, and somehow Donald Trump is going to be a major name here. But also, there were 12 new moons discovered orbiting Jupiter, basically having now 79 moon associated with Jupiter. So yes, this could talk about space travel. This could talk about further discoveries on Earth, new ways of or technology around against environmental pollution and protection overall. Now, as I mentioned before, we do have got a very prominent asteroid involved here called Diana. Now, Diana is actually opposing this lunar eclipse. Its astrological number is 78, if you would like to look it up. So, what does Diana represent? First of all, Diana was the daughter of Jupiter. And in Roman mythology. Now, Diana is very much about. So let's look at the mythology because that might help you to understand its story a little bit. So basically, she begged her own father to let her be free from having to be a mom or having to get married. So this is straight away giving us the idea that we have got some commitment issues here or something around pregnancy matters, motherhood. So I think the gender topics are going to be majorly important. I can imagine the demonstrations basically around it. And I also can imagine that Piers Morgan in England will be even more of a major topic because he is really lobbying against these genderizations and so forth. And of course, Scorpio represents sexuality. So I am very curious to see what's going to happen in the next 6 months. I can imagine that people are going to kind of try to stand up against Piers Morgan, for example. And then Jupiter eventually granted Diana's wish, and she got set free. And then she had all the ability to hunt with her companions. And by the way, she's always associated with a greyhound dog as well. So it could talk about animal cruelty as well, by the way, which might be coming up as a hot topic. And also, she was hunting with her friends as well. Actually, in paintings, Diana often is portrayed naked. So Diana is a symbol of bisexuality, and we can call it as, bisexuality, basically. So that's why I also think, because Taurus is about naturality and Scorpio is a metaphysical approach to things, so I kind of believe that the transgender and all these type of things will be a major topic. So this is one way how we can approach Diana, but also it is representation of space. So wanting to have space in the relationship, no strings attached. So there could be some type of scandals around some no string attached kind of like forms of relationship. It could talk about, for example, that a celebrity is going to break up an engagement with someone, but also Diana can represent non-binding agreements as well. So maybe it's a agreement which is going to get exposed, which took place maybe in 2020, sometimes last year, April, between April and September, basically. But also, it can take us back to the Donald Trump situation as well. And maybe a letter with that Mercury is going to be uh, exposed and posted on social media and all those type of stuff. So this is very, very interesting. Now, Diana, wherever Diana is placed in your chart by house position, um, that could show a little bit of a complexity there or contradictory life, but also it could show you um, uh, where you have got some type of commitment issues. So that would be the area of life for you. I would like to mention, by the way, that also I found it very interesting that Diana, the asteroid in Princess Diana's chart, was on 15th degree of Scorpio. Um, and very, very interesting. It was in her 11th house on top of my head. So I'm wondering if some of the letters of Diana, Princess Diana, or even maybe her children are going to get exposed. Let's see, but it can bring in the royal family. And of course, we do know that the coronation is also coming up as well. So I might be expecting something around that too. So if the solar eclipse is going to be taking place in your first house, then basically the relationship topic is going to be extremely huge for this year. Why is that? Because the moon is going to be in your first house and the sun will be in your seventh house. So often, unfortunately, this is the need to release a relationship in our life. Something might not be working anymore, and there is the need to let that go of. Or we're going to have to look at our psychological blockages, why relationships are not granted in our life, and how we can make that happen, how we can make that better, basically. But also, this could talk to you about wanting to break away from some limiting patterns in your life. So, what's limiting you? What needs to be released? What type of transformation do I need to go through? How to change my approach to life? Am I a little bit too pessimistic, or I need to be boosting my confidence level? Do I need to be surrounded by people who are actually a lot more, optimistic and they live the finer side of life too? But also, you might be experiencing some type of delays when it comes to your new beginnings. Because the first house is something to do with new beginnings, but this is a south node eclipse here. So often we are reminded that we're going to have to work something through, or there is kind of like a crisis situation, an important event which is popping up, and we have to push our goals back a little bit. It's also very important to focus on your health this time around or on other people's health. Some of you might want to be actually boosting their confidence level by having a cosmetic surgery done, for example. If you have got the eclipse falling into your second house, therefore, it's going to be the second and the eighth house activation, then you are going to be focusing a lot on your finances. You are going to be maybe, there is a need here to let go of some of your money. So it would kind of like represent for you some expenditure. Maybe it's the fact that you want to be borrowing money from the bank. Maybe you want to be actually relying on someone else's assets because actually you are running out of that. But it might be something where you feel like that, you know what, this is a power struggle for me. I feel ashamed of asking for money from someone. But also, you are reminded to look at your spending habits a little bit. Often it can get worse or it can get better. But with Uranus being involved here, our spending habit can be quite erratic. Also, this is an eclipse which might be asking you to change some of your habits as well. Maybe we actually are kind of like pushed or forced by others. Maybe we are having a conversation with someone about how to change habits, eating habits, for example, and so forth, because you have no self-worth at the moment. So psychologically speaking, you're going to have to figure out what is holding you back. What is that toxic situation in your life which is dragging your self-worth down? So there is an element of a healing of that, but also healing of your finances. What is your connection to money? Are you a hoarder? Do you need to let go of something? Or do you just need to be able to find the psychological blockages of why you are not able to make a little bit more? It's very possible you are going to be changing your diet, or you are going to be focusing more on your personal values. Now, because we do have got the eighth house involved here too, which is really much about trusting others. The second house is about trusting yourself. So it might be that you cannot trust others, or you feel that they are not trusting you, but somehow it does bring in personal relationships also into the picture. If you have got the eclipse happening in your third house, actually, it might be that some of your travel plans are going to get delayed for some reason, or you're going to have some travel plans coming up which you did not count with. It just comes out of the blue, and then you're going to have to leave everything behind with a little bit of an uncomfortable feeling because I've got duties, I've got relatives, and so forth. But I also have to make this trip as well. But also, it's possible that you're going to have some visitors out of the blue. I mean, with Uranus and Mercury involvement, typically this would be cousins or siblings, or just kind of like some long distance type of relatives overall. But they might be knocking on your door out of the blue, and you are quite shocked about that. But also, this could bring some disagreement with your siblings or your neighbors as well. And often it might be leading to the fact that I want to be relocating, for example. Typically, this was just would be a relocation moving across from one point of the country to another. But also, this is pretty much about making sure during especially the eclipse period that we are a little bit more cautious when it comes to how we deal with paperwork. Very easy to make mistake, especially around contractual agreements. But also, you might feel more compelled to write. And that would be a great way to deal with this internalized emotional turmoil type of lunar eclipse, where we are unsure of how to give voice to our feelings, but we are meant to be talking about our own problems. Also, you might be just shutting down your phone and you don't want to be spending so much time on social media. If it happens in your fourth house, then you are going to be focusing quite a lot on home and domestic matters. Whether something is going to break down in your home, for example, because Mercury can talk about appliances, Uranus can talk about breakdowns. So whether something is going to break down in your home environment, and you are going to be thinking about how to replace that. Shall I buy a new one? Shall I a brand new one? Or shall I buy a second-hand one? What could be a great investment from my part? I would like to remind you that because Mercury is actually retrograde, often it indicates that the problem is going to be returning. But also, this could talk about some upheavals in your family life. So, whether you're going to have, unfortunately, misunderstandings and problems with your family, with your parents, which might be leading to some type of argument. Unfortunately, that's possible because the lunar eclipse, traditional ruler, is in the sign of Cancer. And Cancer is extremely feels suffocated in the sign of Cancer. And the fourth house lunar eclipse is also telling you on a spiritual level that it's time to grow up. It's time to cut the ties with some family, from family problems It's time to mature emotionally. It's time to take the power back. They cannot have a hold on me anymore. Whatever was going on in my childhood, I just need to move away from those. It could also talk about, for example, that you want to buy or sell a home, but it might be delayed. So it might not be happening immediately, but it happens for the greater good. Maybe because the prices will go up or the value of the property is going to be changing for your benefit as well. Of course, this can also indicate some major move in your life as well, but often it is about getting to know some family secrets which are swept under the carpet, and then you are digging that up. With Mercury and Uranus, often we actually find a letter, for example, or a important document. Maybe it's your birth certificate you're going to find, and then you are quite shocked about that your time of birth is actually different than what you thought. But I think, psychologically speaking, the most important part is that you are meant to be re-establishing your family bonds. How are you going to do that? If it happens in your fifth house, then this lunar eclipse is actually telling you that it might be time to focus a little bit more on responsibility. Also important to have a little bit of a fun as well at the same time. Or you might feel like that you have to sacrifice your fun time, your holidays, your travel plans, and so forth, because you've got so much responsibility going on at work. Also, it could talk to you about that you have been dating someone for a while, and then you have got some second thoughts coming in. Is it really the person I want to be around? I don't necessarily feel the chemistry anymore. Or maybe it's going to be an emotionally challenging period of time because someone is going to drift apart from us, whether it is a friend, whether it is a romantic interest. But at the same time, we are definitely required to be more out there with friends or public or networking, but we're going to have to let go of some of our pride. Imagine a situation where you had a little bit of a fallout with someone. It is time to forgive. But also, it could talk to you about a focus on your speculative businesses, but not taking too much risk at a time, because this is a south node here. If you have got the eclipse falling into the sixth house, well, there are some certain habits in your life which needs to be adjusted. Whether the fact that you are working 24/7 and you forget to rest and you have got some sleep problems, and those sleep problems can eventually lead to a potential accident, for example, or whether you have got some bad habits that are so toxic and that is holding you back from some type of spiritual growth, but some of your habits need to be changed for the better. It could be, for example, that you are overdoing, for example, gym practices, and you're going to have to slow down a little bit. Or maybe you are not doing any type of gym and you need an emotional courage to go back and start a healthier routine. Now, often what happens is that, let's say, I remember when I was pretty big and I felt ashamed of going back to the gym because, after 5 minutes, I'm going to be out of breath and people are going to be laughing at me and so forth. These type of belief system needs to be put aside. Also, some of you might be losing their pet, for example, or they are going to be having some medical issues. And maybe you are not going to be able to concentrate at work so well like you did before. So there could be an element of a confusion going on. Maybe some bits and bobs are going to be breaking down around your home environment. And you might not be finding the greatest DIY guys. But on a spiritual level, it's about spiritual cleansing. It's about recharging the body, letting go of the toxics of the body. So flushing through the body
whatever we don't need in that body that needs to go to the toilet so that we feel alive again. If you have got this lunar eclipse happening in your seventh house, also the attention is going to be on the growth of the relationship. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to get married. It doesn't necessarily mean we are not we gonna meet someone. It doesn't also mean that we are going to get divorced, because it could bring the accumulated problems also to to an unbearable level. So it could talk about marriage, divorce, and so forth. But also it could talk about that you are feeling that um, you are sacrificing so much in the relationship, and then you have ignored your personal growth, that it's time to actually invest a little bit more time, money, and effort into yourself, into your style, and into your self-worth. Now, of course, we do have got Venus going through your Gemini this time around, which is your second house, right? So this would pretty much talk to you about the need to boost something into your self-worth, to feel better in your own skin. But it can talk about a shift in your close relationships. And also it could talk about that you are going to be having some legal dispute, and that legal dispute, you have got a great chance to win, actually, especially when Jupiter moves into the seventh house. If you have got the eclipse taking place in the eighth house, then you might be actually receiving money from legal matters, or you are going to be going through some type of settlement, potentially with partners, or but it might not be turning out in the greatest way than you expected, Joe. However, it is granting you some personal finance growth overall. It might be just the fact that you want to be taking out your insurance, for example, or you are focusing on repairing your credit score because eventually you want to be having a loan. And that might be actually giving you a chance here. But also, this is very possible that you are going through a total transformation. I mean, you did have your solar eclipse happening in your first house, right? So now the activation of the eighth house is giving you the chance to become a completely new person. Some of you might get pregnant with this. Maybe it has been uh, uh, an attempt for a while and then it didn't work out. And then you realize that there is some emotional blockages there, which needs to be cleared out. And often we're going to have to ask for help too. But also, it's very possible that you emotionally and physically feel very drained. When we have got eighth house activations, often the relationship is very obsessive, the partner is jealous, and unfortunately, we are required to put a stop to it in either way. If you've got the solar eclipse falling into your ninth house, that might be talking about a change of place of living. Maybe a change of country, actually. You've been living somewhere for a while and you want to be moving away. So relocation to a foreign country could be a topic. But at the same time, this is all about stop being an eternal student. Or actually, it is asking you to revisit some of your knowledge. It needs to be refreshed a little bit. Your knowledge needs to be modernized. Maybe it's actually your website. But there is a need to broaden your perspective. It might be that you have been studying something for a very long time. And you know what? You should not be studying anymore. You should get out there and then somehow start to share your knowledge. Maybe you want to be publishing your book, but it has been not going as well as you have imagined. So some type of delays are coming there too. Now, this lunar eclipse is happening in my ninth house, and my publishing of my book is a little bit slowed down. I'm getting kind of frustrated with it. And also at the same time, I have no idea where I'm moving. I know I'm going to be moving somewhere. I just still don't know where. So let's see. If it happens in your 10th house, it is telling you to stop focusing on your achievements too much, and you might want to be spending a little bit more time at home as well, or at least to take care of your emotional foundation. Because just focusing on the results doesn't work without being content with the self as well, right? It is telling you that, you know what, you've been working way too hard to accomplish something in your career, but now you might need to be actually just focusing on your emotional well-being a little bit more. It might be a loss of a job, unfortunately, but also it can indicate that you might be having issues with your boss or the company you work for. You might have been working extremely hard to get promoted, and someone else gets the promotion instead of you. It could also talk to you about the need to focus a little bit more on your family matters. It can bring in parents, unfortunately, a loss of a parent as well. In some intensities, and it could really bring up some relationship dynamic changes within the family, which might be very upsetting, and we are not able to concentrate on our work as efficiently. If it happens in the 11th house, then it might be about letting go of some toxic group of people around you, because they have been dragging you down. It also can indicate that you might be prone to, or you might have got the desire to become a member of the community. You are signing up for something, and then all of a sudden it gets taken away from you. But it happens for the greater good, because a better opportunity is going to come up for you. But also, you might be having a long-term goal, a hope, a dream you've been considering for a while, but all of a sudden you're going to have a completely different idea, and you are going to be shifting your long-term goals. Of course, often there is a fear that, yes, but I've put so much time and effort into this already, so shall I do that? And the other end, the fifth house is telling you that you need to be following your heart desire, that you need to be acting on your intuition as well. You should not be disregarding your intuition. And last but not least, if it happens in the 12th house, it might be that you are ready to let go of some of the sorrows, unhappiness in your life, and you want to be replacing those with some more positive memories. Maybe it can reflect on the fact as well that someone from the past might have been causing some problems for you, and then you just want to run away from the problem. But this is also about finding a solution as well. It's also possible that you might feel that you have to give up on something. And why do I have to keep giving up on something? You might feel that your immune system is getting weaker, and unfortunately, you are prone to get sick a little bit easier. But also, it might be a positive news, and you have to be giving up, or you give up on a substance that you were able to you have been taking for a while, maybe a medicine, and all of a sudden you are instructed that you can stop that. Now, that's also a giving up and the surrendering as well. I also believe that this could indicate the need to stop being charitable all the time, and just focusing a little bit more your kind of own garden and to keep that tidy. And when we have got a bit of time to help others, then we are going to do that. And also, this period of time might be a busy one at workplace. And that might leave a bit of sweet taste in your mouth that you would like to rest a little bit more, but there are really busy periods, maybe some type of audits at work. So very briefly, I just wanted to summarize for you what this lunar eclipse might bring you for the 12 signs. But please remember to try to put all the information I shared previously into the house where it is happening for you. The most important is if it hits one of your personal planets. So the personal planets are Sun, Moon, Mercury, Mars, or Venus. And also if it's one of the angle of your chart, so the ascendant, descendant, IC, or DMC, then you are pretty much impacted. One more thing which I would like to share here, that this is the Saros family 141. Now, why is that important for us? Is because Saros families repeat themselves. The very first time when we had the Saros family 141 activation was in 2010, January 15th, to be precise. And I looked up from a historical point of view, and countries started to declare that they are coming out of a recession. One of them was Colombia, for example, in January, almost exactly on the same day of the 141 eclipse. And then straight after, a couple of days later, England, after 6 consecutive quarter of kind of like economic crisis situation, they actually announced that they managed to make a little bit more. So, this lunar eclipse is definitely activating for us the financial axis, as you can see. So, guys, thank you for your attention, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.